How do I make this jazzy? I feel like I'm saying the same things over and over, but the thing I want to say is that you should subscribe to the Raging Moderates YouTube channel. We're doing fun things like we're with Ed Elson from Prof G Markets. Scott's children are getting together, just me and Ed, not his actual children, for a new YouTube exclusive from Raging Moderates. Listen to Prof G Markets as well, obviously, if you are into that. If not, you should watch it anyway and like, subscribe, do all the things. Welcome to Raging Moderates. I'm Jessica Tarlov, and my guest today is a favorite voice in the Prof G universe, besides Scott, of course, paying our bills, our daddy or our zaddy or something. I think that sounds like it's sexy, and it shouldn't be like that. But anyway, the co-host of our Markets podcast, Ed Elson, is here. Ed, it's such a treat to have you.
Good to be on. Zaddy is the right word. He's taking care of us, yeah.
He'll like that. I hope his shirt is on, though,
Daddy
when
Scott.
He hears it. Let's talk about Argentina, Ed. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about what's happening with the bailout. We've been getting a ton of listener questions about this, and then I thought perfect thing to talk to Ed about. People are asking whether Trump's bailing out Argentina instead of focusing on Americans here at home. So bit of background, he's been dangling this $20 billion bailout. Bessent actually said that could get up to $40 billion, which seems like a lot of money, but only if his ally, President Javier Milei, wins his upcoming election. It ties U.S. financial aid directly to a foreign leader's political fate, which economists say is almost unheard of. Democrats are calling it a political payoff. As a Democrat, I would say that sounds like a political payoff. Which Trump insists is just about spreading a, quote, great philosophy in Latin America. Let's watch.
So it's a little bit like that with, if you take a look at Argentina, if the president doesn't win, I know the person that he'd be running against, I believe, probably, we probably have the person. A person is extremely far left and a philosophy that got Argentina into this problem in the first place. So we would not be generous with Argentina if that happened. If he loses, we are not going to be generous with Argentina.
So I know how that sounds to me, like using American money to buy loyalty abroad. But what's your take?
Yeah, I think the first thing we should clarify here, because a lot of people are saying that all of this is sort of unprecedented. We originally had that $20 billion bailout to sort of calm down the markets in Argentina. And a lot of people are saying this is unprecedented. This is like highly unusual. I just want to clarify, this is unusual, but it's not like crazy unusual.
Okay.
Like the U.S. has done this before. We've done this with Mexico. We've done this with Japan. We've done this with Europe. You know, we have a history of intervening and helping out the markets of our allies when their markets are unstable. So I just want to clarify that first off. For those who's like, we've never seen this before, not really true. We have seen this before. This isn't totally out of the ordinary. The thing that is very unusual, and the thing that is more important here, is the fact that we are seeing this bailout from this administration specifically. Because this administration, this is the one that claimed to be the America First administration. This is the administration that cut $8 billion in foreign aid programs. This is the administration that cut more than $1 billion in these global health programs that were designed to basically save the lives of people who were dying of fatal illnesses. This is what USAID was all about. And, you know, that was going to lead to and is going to lead to possibly the deaths of 14 million people. Point being, the argument from the administration from the get-go has always been this. The argument has been, we have this spending problem in America. We're not in a position of luxury to help other nations and put their interests ahead of our own. We can't offer this assistance. So that was the argument. A lot of people thought it was quite harsh, including myself, but I understood it logically. It's like, okay, we have $1 trillion worth of interest payments. We shouldn't be maybe spending all of this money abroad. Okay, that was the argument. That was the story they told us. Then, just a few months later, they turn around and they give a $20 billion handout to a nation with whom we actually don't have much of a relationship with. Yes, they're kind of a political ally, but in terms of a financial or an economic relationship with Argentina, this is not a significant country. So they decide to give $20 billion. Remember, I was talking about we need to cut $8 billion worth of foreign assistance. We're now just handing out $20 billion. And then just a few days later, it's actually we're going to give them another $20 billion. So that's the part that is unusual. Now, why are they doing this? Why would they do this? And why would they cut all of the spending over in all of these other programs? And I think a lot of people are saying Javier Milei, who's the president of Argentina, he's conservative-minded, he's libertarian, he's sort of praised Trump, and this is sort of a political thing, it's left versus right. I don't think that is the real story here. I think the real story is revolving around a guy who some people who are into the politics may have heard of, and the guy's name is Rob Citron.
Yeah.
And this is the billionaire hedge fund manager. This is a guy who worked on Wall Street. He went to Tiger Management, which is a big hedge fund. He's a Tiger Cub, made a ton of money. He started this hedge fund called Discovery. And during his time on Wall Street, he became very good friends with a guy named Scott Bessent.
I've heard of that guy.
Yes. So they became very good buddies. They were working at a hedge fund together. They were rubbing elbows. And that's his guy. That's his friend. Now, Rob Citron became a billionaire. He is now a minority owner in the Pittsburgh Steelers. He is an extremely rich guy. He's made a bunch of extremely bold bets over the years, one of which was this crazy bold bet on Argentina, where he goes out and he buys a huge amount of Argentinian equity and also Argentinian debt, because his belief is that Javier Milei is going to turn the country around and fuel this economic resurgence. Spring rolls around, inflation is down, which is good for Argentina, but at the same time, you've got stagnant economic growth, you've got unemployment that's rising, and then Milei's popularity starts to tank. He loses this local election, or his party loses, and then suddenly there's this flight of capital out of the country, huge sell-off in the bond markets, massive destabilization of the peso, all of this meaning that Rob Citron is going to get wiped out. That is the implication.
Right.
So what does he do? He calls his buddy, Scott Bessent. He says, hey, man, you need to help me out here. You need to bail us out. And by the way, if you do it, it's not a big deal because remember, this is a thing that governments do. America's done it before, so we can cover it up and call it that. But ultimately...
And you guys have a strong connection also to Milei. I mean, the administration does.
Exactly.
You had like Elon Musk and like the chainsaw, right? That was a gift from Milei. And I remember last year we were talking about whether Argentina had pulled off this complete economic miracle, right?
Yes.
Remember that was the main narrative. And now that's obviously not the case. I wanted to add, I'm glad that you brought up Citron.
Yeah.
But there are a bunch of other really important American firms that are deeply invested in Argentina, like Fidelity, BlackRock, PIMCO. So there are, more than just him, but obviously he's a close personal friend of Bessent. And I think there are a few other folks who worked with Bessent when he was in Soros world that are also deep in Argentina.
Yes.
Soybean farmers, also worth mentioning that we gave Argentina this $20 billion bailout, and they have gone and bought soybeans, not from us, but from China.
Yes.
And there are a bunch of farmers that are doing interviews, recording videos and putting it up on social, talking about, what a kick that feels like the administration giving them, especially after so many of them voted for Trump.
Yes. And by the way, I think this is going to ultimately really come back to bite Trump because I think people are beginning to connect the dots. But again, I do think that there are a lot of ways that we can sort of justify this decision that is completely antithetical to what the administration has been talking about since the beginning. It was all America first. It was, we need to forget about these countries, stop giving them bailouts, stop helping them out. Why do we need to do that? And then suddenly they do this. And now everyone is correctly asking the question, why would you do that? Why does that make sense? And I do believe that the most important piece of this is Rob Citron, which is why I want to highlight him, because it is indicative of the way this administration works, which is that there is no real policy agenda other than who's the guy who has $1 billion on the other end of the phone who says, you got to help me out here. It's a quid pro quo. So Bessent goes to Trump. He says, we got to bail out Argentina. Trump says, okay. I doubt Trump even really understands the issues here.
It's just like
$20 billion done. overnight, wire transfer, no problem. And the thing that's crazy is the job isn't finished because Argentina is extremely unstable still. And this is a big piece of their history. They've defaulted 9 times in the past 50 years. They default constantly asking for money. The IMF, they've bailed them out 23 times over the past 50 years, more than any other nation.
Oh,
so now
yeah.
they need more money because you've kind of stopped the bleeding, but the bleeding's probably going to continue. So now, of course, Scott Bessent says, oh, we need another 20 billion. And it is just unbelievable how easy it is to make these decisions, how they're very, very hard-nosed about we need to cut the costs here. We need to cut the costs when it comes to DOGE. We need to cut the costs when it comes to Medicaid. But they're very, very liberal when it comes to this. And again, this to me is a story not about necessarily Javier Milei and not even about left versus right. To me, this is about the cronyism and the upside of being in the Trump circle, where you can make a bad investment as Rob Citron, and you can know, okay, I've got my guy Scott on the other end of the line. I can be bailed out to the tune of tens of billions of dollars. We keep on seeing this with the Trump administration. I feel like probably MAGA's going to start figuring this out. It seems like Marjorie Taylor Greene is figuring this out, but I hope so.
Yeah, rules for thee, but not for me. Definitely a pervasive problem and theme in this administration. I want to quickly get your take on Trump threatening to take FIFA World Cup games away from cities that he deems, quote, unsafe. Let's play that clip.
Somebody said, would we think about taking the World Cup away from Boston if they don't straighten it out? And the answer is yes. We have the right to do that with FIFA. So if we think that LA is going to be bad, or we think that applies a little bit to the Olympics too, but we'll talk about FIFA first. FIFA is very hot. If we think there's any reason that, whether it's Boston or anywhere else, that they're not doing their job, we're going to take those World Cup games and move them someplace else.
So he's wrong. He can't do that. I know he thinks he is omnipotent, but FIFA decides which cities they go into. But do you think this is just kind of like an aside thing that Trump is throwing out there, or we're going to see this as a recurring talking point?
I think it's definitely going to be recurring. I would note that, yes, it's up to FIFA, but what you have to remember about FIFA, you have to remember who runs FIFA.
All right.
And Gianni Infantino, he is like one of the top sycophants to Trump. So, I mean, it is up to FIFA, but my view is if Trump says we're not going to do the World Cup in Boston, I don't think we're going to do the World Cup in Boston. FIFA, to me, is one of the more corrupt and spineless organizations when it comes to the world of sports. They have a long history of corruption.
Yeah.
So my view is I think that if it comes to like standing up for your values, I actually doubt that FIFA would be the kind of champion that maybe a lot of Americans would hope they would be. I think if he says, you got to do it, I think they would follow. But I do think what this comes down to ultimately is it's a free speech scare tactic. I mean, it's like Trump is basically saying, Boston, you guys voted for this Democratic mayor. You're expressing yourselves. I don't like it. So I'm not going to put you in jail like a third world dictator would do, but I'm going to take away your privileges. I'm going to take away your World Cup that you're all excited for. He keeps on doing it. I mean, we saw it with the visa revocations that the Department of State was tweeting about, where if you say anything bad about Charlie Kirk, your visa is revoked. And they bragged about this on Twitter. So I view this as more of the same. I think this is him trying to scare Americans into basically agreeing with him and saying,
or at least following the rules. I don't know if he really thinks that people are going to be sitting in their homes extolling the virtues of the Trump administration, but he likes things neat and tidy, as we know. So looking at what he did in Washington, D.C., though, he's going to run out of cities to be able to have the World Cup in if he says that no sanctuary cities, or that you have to have a mayor that likes him. So we could have like all of them in Miami, essentially, but that's about it. Ed, it was so great to have you. Everyone should listen to Prof G Markets, obviously, and come back and be a raging moderate again.
Really appreciate it. I'm glad we finally got the collab.
The crossover happened.
Yes, very exciting.
The zaddy
I hope
thing
to
happening.
do more, and we're going to need to get you on Markets soon to give us
That's just
the
what your
spiel on what's
listeners want. You
happening
should
in
get Rob
politics.
Citron on. Would he come?
That's a good idea.
Have you asked? Slide into his DMs.
I think that's a great idea. I should have only Trump insiders on the podcast, and we'll all be rich. They're doing very well right
Well,
now.
that would be nice.
That would be nice.
All right, I'll see you soon.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Jesse.